Is Penn State in a national championship or bust season? They bring back 65% of their production. First rounder Drew Allar, at least he's projected to be a first round QB in the 2026 draft, and potential first rounders Dani Dennis-Sutton and AJ Harris. They hired Jim Knowles away from Ohio State, the best defensive coordinator in the nation, and I think Andy Kotelnicki is also the best defensive coordinator in the nation. They went 13-3 last year, the Nittany Lions did, with an 8-1 Big Ten record. They played in the Big Ten championship game. Their preseason win total's a 10.5, and their S&P Plus ranking per Bill Connolly in the preseason is third, with a 27.7 S&P Plus preseason rating. It's a fifth of a point behind Alabama, and it's only 2 points behind Ohio State. So I look at the Nittany Lions and I think to myself that this isn't similar to, it is similar in the sense of the strategy, the roster, and the staff to 2024 Ohio State and 2023 Michigan, but at the same time, those teams entered said seasons with a reputation of still winning big games. Not winning them all, not winning the biggest one of them all, the national title, but Ryan Day, was beating James Franklin and beat Marcus Freeman and beat good teams and competed with Georgia in the playoffs and almost beat them by double digits. And Jim Harbaugh was beating Ohio State, beating Penn State, reached the playoff and got blown out by Georgia and lost in close fashion to a TCU team they should have destroyed. But they had some big wins baked in. And Penn State just hasn't had that under Franklin in recent memory, even though they have taken steps up from where they were in the 2010s. So I think factoring that in, combined with the fact that they are not recruiting at a top 5 level every year, and some years they don't even recruit top 10, even with their amazing staff, that if they keep around, I think they'll be title contenders almost every year. I do think this is a national title or bust season for Penn State. And before we resume, please like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for my channel, and also hit the notification bell for the Penn State football podcast that's in the description. That way you can keep up to date with all of my Penn State football coverage or national coverage, maybe for like a top 10 team ranking that includes Penn State, because I have them as my best team overall, number 1 team overall, entering 2025. And you can keep up to date with any of my thoughts on Penn State that way. Also check out our Discord server via the link in the description, and watch as much of this segment as you can. And again, like the video. Those things help us get into the algorithm. They're totally free. Don't sign you up for anything. Let me tell you more of why this is a national title or bust year for Penn State. Number 1, their schedule is maybe tougher than it looks initially, but I think that combined with their roster and staff means their floor is probably 10-2. They get Nevada, FIU, and Villanova at home in weeks 1 through 3. They get a bye week 4, host Oregon week 5 in the whiteout. They travel to UCLA in week 6, host Northwestern week 7, travel to Iowa, which is going to be hard, but they get a bye following that game so they can sell out for it before the bye in week 9. They travel to Ohio State in week 10, host Indiana week 11, travel to Michigan State week 12, host Nebraska week 13, and travel to Rutgers in week 14. You got Ohio State on the road, you got Oregon at home, Indiana on the road, Iowa on the road. It's essentially, in my mind, a 4-game schedule. Now, maybe I'm underestimating Michigan State and Rutgers, maybe even underestimating Nebraska, but the 3 non-conference games should be auto wins, and Penn State's talented enough to where they're probably going to be favored in every single one of their games except for the Ohio State game, and maybe they'll be favored against Ohio State when they play them. Who knows? So that's reason number 1. Is I think the schedule combined with what they return works out for them to reach the playoffs with 11 wins like they did last year. Therefore, get a home game and get an advantageous road to win it all. Number 2 is the amount of high-quality players they have. Let me read you my All-American team, or at least the players on my All-American team from Penn State. I have Drew Allar on my second All-American team at quarterback, Nicholas Singleton on my first team, Kaytron Allen on my second team. And my All-American teams in both number of teams and number of players per teams are larger, but it's still an honor because we're talking about the best players in America here. Players who are top 25 at their position, and if you're on the first or second team, you're top 5 or top 5, certainly top 10 in your position. I'll make a video about those lists in the future. Nick Dawkins is on my third team All-American at center. Vega Ione is my best overall guard entering this year. I have Nolan Rucci on my second team at tackle and Anthony Dunco on my fifth team at tackle. And Drew Shelton could make this list for sure. I have Trevor Pena at wide receiver on my third team and Devontae Ross on my honorable mention fifth team. Luke Reynolds is also on the honorable mention fifth team at tight end. Zane Durant, first team All-American at D tackle. Alonzo Ford's a third teamer at D tackle, and Ty Blanding is on the honorable mention fifth team at D tackle. I have Dani Dennis-Sutton on my second All-American team at edge. At linebacker, I have Tony Rojas on my second team. I have Dominic DeLuca on the sixth team. I think especially under Knowles that you're going to see the Penn State defensive front take a leap forward, or just the overall defense. Zakee Wheatley's on my first team at safety. And then I have A.J. Harris as the number 1 overall corner this year, first team. Elliot Washington's on the honorable mention, fifth team. 20 All-Americans. Now, again, list is larger than most others, if not everyone else's All-American lists. I do that intentionally because there's just so many great players who I think should be on All-American lists that have to get left out because of the limited slots. And it isn't a participation trophy. You're still one of the best players in America, even on my expanded All-American lists. There's no one who's just good on there. They're all either great at the absolute worst or near elite, potentially generational, and in the case of someone like Jeremiah Smith, centennial on the list. Penn State, I think, has the best starting roster in America. I don't know if it's the deepest because of where they are at recruiting, but I'd like to think with their staff, they very well could be. And I think that their starting roster is the best, for sure. It's balanced. There aren't any obvious weaknesses, especially after what Penn State did in the portal. And we already talked about their schedule. I mean, they should win 11 or 12 games in the regular season. 10-2 is the absolute worst case scenario in my mind. And I know James Franklin has not won the big game. He hasn't. But I think he's a top 20 head coach overall, and I think Knowles and Kotelnicki are the best coordinators in their respective fields. I really do. I think Singleton's the best back in America, Vega is the best guard, and Harris is the best corner. This is a team who could, if everything goes right, be better than the Ohio State team who beat them last year in Happy Valley, and better than the Michigan team who came before that Ohio State team. They could be that elite. They could be the best national champion since 2020 Bama or 2021 Georgia. Or maybe they're not as good as the prior champions, but they still win it all anyway. This is a team who I think, when I look at 2023 Michigan, for example, and how they were able to run the ball for 30-something times, I think it was 34 times in a row against Penn State to close out the game, I think this Penn State offensive line and running back room could do that. I do. I think about, Tyler Warren and how they ran him in the Wildcat a bunch last year. And I think that, Luke Reynolds, while I don't think he'll be Tyler Warren, I think he'll certainly be a great tight end this year. And there's just so much diversity in the offense and so many different strengths on the team overall where I think they should expect to win a title. Penn State needs to not only win the big game, whether that's Oregon, Ohio State, or preferably both, I think they need to win the Big Ten. And if they don't win the Big Ten, they have to win it all or the year's a failure. If they win the Big Ten and compete for a title and maybe lose in the title game, I wouldn't call the season a success, but I wouldn't call it a failure either. Just be kind of like good team. It was fun, and it wasn't a failure, but it wasn't this resounding success either. This is a national title or bust year for Penn State, absolutely, because they do not recruit at the level to immediately be in the top 5 picture next year. They could be, but they're not guaranteed to because of their talent. They have a lot of older, elite players who will be leaving after this year all at once. There's no guarantee that Kotelnicki will stay, and while it's Jim Knowles' first year, so there's probably a guarantee that he will stay. Losing Kotelnicki will be huge. And James Franklin also does not have the track record to suggest that after a year where maybe he does win it all, or, at least wins the game against Ohio State, wins the Big Ten, he doesn't have the track record to say that he'll do that the following year or even the year after that. It has been, we're coming in on year 10 since he won the Big Ten back in 2016. That's what we're coming on. So, yeah, it's absolutely a national title or bust year for those reasons. The lack of talent in the 2 or 3 deep, to where I don't think that'll be a problem this year, but next year you'll see a drop off in the starting talent. The fact that Kotelnicki is probably interested in becoming a head coach somewhere, so you'd lose a great staffer. James Franklin's lack of replicated success at a high level, and the fact that you're top 25 in returning production, and last year you were a top 5 team. So it's time to win it all, James Franklin. It's time to win it all, not just win the big game. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like the video, comment below. I appreciate you for doing those things. They help me out and they help you out. We'll see you soon.